Discover the amazing secrets of ancient Egypt, unveiling 5 transformative mysteries revealed. Sarah brushed a layer of dust off an old trunk in her late grandmother's attic, the light filtering through a small window, catching the motes hovering like memories suspended in time. She felt a thrill as she reached inside. Her fingers encountered a smooth, cool surface, an intricately engraved scarab charm. The hieroglyphs pulsed with an energy that was both foreign and familiar, igniting embers of long-forgotten dreams in her heart. Memories flooded back. Each story of ancient Egyptians she had cherished as a child, whispering promises of adventure, lore, and limitless horizons. But now, at 32, and forever juggling the demands of a high school history teacher and single mother to a teenager, reality anchored her to the mundane. She felt like a ghost draped in the memories of her passion. Each day at school, a fight against the encroaching fog of standardization. Her colleagues scoffed at her creativity. "Stick to the curriculum, Sarah. Focus on the tests," they said, dismissing the vibrant tales she breathed life into. Unease twisted in her gut, the duality of her existence gnawing at her. Home should have been a sanctuary, yet it echoed with the pressures of bills to pay and a daughter, Mia, who seemed to drift further away with each passing day. Their financial struggles made the thrill of discovery feel like a distant luxury, trappings reserved for wealthier lives. Still, the scarab charm breathed life into her, a silent call to rediscover her identity buried beneath layers of obligation. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As nights turned into explorations of ancient Egypt through online forums, Sarah felt the walls of her ordinary life begin to peel away. She connected with Mr. Richards, a grizzled former Egyptologist who reluctantly became her mentor. They debated the significance of the pharaohs into the wee hours, drawing strength from each other's knowledge. But this newfound passion came with a cost. The pressure of balancing duties began to weigh heavily on her, tightening like a noose. Could she wade through the exhaustion while advocating for her students' right to dream? The mere thought filled her with dread. Then Nathan Cole emerged, a wealthy publishing mogul whose eyes glinted with opportunistic ambition. When he set his sights on the charm, Sarah felt a shiver of foreboding. She sensed his hunger for control, a beast lurking behind the promise of riches. This tug of war between financial security and integrity twisted deeper within her. Was her late grandmother's legacy worth stripping the charm's story bare for cash? As doubts loomed larger than life, whispers in Cedar Grove blurred into a chant of judgment. Would they back her, or would they dismiss her as just another dreamer? The stakes loomed higher. The dust swirling around her was no longer mere particles. It symbolized her fate and future, the very essence of her struggle. She clutched the scarab tightly, her pulse echoing its rhythm. Here she stood, on the brink of a conflict that transcended time and personal sacrifice, where the past and future collided. Would she embrace the challenge, or let the echoes slip away like shadows in the dusk? In the days that followed, uncertainty weighed heavily on Sarah's mind. Scriptures of the past intertwined with the concerns of her daily reality, shifting her priorities in unpredictable directions. Late-night discussions with Mr. Richards sparked inspiration, yet the morning light stripped away the eloquence of their late-night debates, leaving her wrestling with increasingly intricate dilemmas. She longed to ignite her classroom with tales of ancient civilizations, yet the looming presence of test scores and parental expectations loomed like a dark cloud over her plans. One day, feeling cornered and small, she closed the classroom door behind her, sinking into a chair at her desk. A plethora of tasks loomed before her, but her mind drifted toward the scarab charm now resting safely at home. It was more than just an object. It had become a symbol of her struggle for legacy and meaning. That day, the bell signaling the end of school rang, but Sarah remained, a silent sentinel amidst the chaos of papers and textbooks. "What are you doing in here?" Her colleague Clara's voice held a teasing note. "Analyzing your own life choices?" "Maybe," Sarah replied, a hint of defiance creeping into her tone. "Maybe I'm working on something bigger than just passing the state tests." Clara raised an eyebrow, her skepticism evident. "Right, because kids need poetry and the mysteries of the past, not measurable skills." The exchange felt like barbed wire tightening around her throat. An embarrassment simmered beneath the surface. Clara's words thrummed through Sarah's mind like relentless drumbeats, berating her for straying from the path deemed acceptable. However, it was over the weekend, wrapped in the dim light of her home, that Sarah's resolve began to sharpen. She sat cross-legged on the floor, poring over her grandmother's journals and an array of resources shared by Mr. Richards. Each turn of the page beckoned her to step beyond the shrouded door of safety and comfort. The narratives, interspersed within the text, whispered of power, ambition, and the ability to shape stories into new forms, evolving her role from merely a teacher to that of a storyteller. Slowly but surely, she developed a plan. It was bold and vulnerable. It outlined a curriculum that intertwined modern student experiences with the lessons of ancient Egypt. She envisioned a project that would not only draw her students into the rich tapestry of history, but empower them to express their interpretations in a vivid, tangible format, shattering the mold of standardized education. Yes, it would inspire them to embrace creativity and, more importantly, reclaim their identities both within and outside the classroom. But with each flicker of inspiration came the gnawing fear of failure. Would the students, her once dissatisfied daughter, and even her colleagues dismiss her as an impractical outlier? Would Nathan Cole prey upon her uncertainties, ready to exploit her passion at first glance? The constant push and pull of risk gnawed at her consciousness. It demanded focus as she turned the corner deeper into uncharted territory. Through all this, Mia remained an enigma. The space between them expanded a little more each day, the shared moments slipping through her fingers like grains of sand. It was time to reach out, to forge back that connection. Maybe, just maybe, this venture could become their bridge. As she tentatively positioned herself on the first steps of this new path, determination surged within her. It was not merely a question of academics. It transcended the boundaries of financial hardship, of societal expectations, and even personal fears. This was about legacy, about storytelling, about a mother's love digging deep into the soil of her children's potential. But as she penned notes for her proposal, a text message interrupted her reverie, flashing a chilling reminder. Nathan would like to discuss the charm. The ominous undertone of that invitation pulsed through her. Confrontation was on the horizon, and with it, the moment of truth would arrive. She could either allow fear to dictate her effects, or wield her words like weapons for her vision. With her heart pounding, she took a deep breath, preparing for what lay ahead. As Sarah stared at her phone, the rhythmic pulse of her heartbeat echoed in the silent room. Each thud seemed to chant an unsung question. Was she ready? Ignoring the insistent buzz of anxiety, she parsed through her mind. What did he want with the charm? What had it become to him? The charm, once an innocuous heirloom, now carried a weighty significance tethered to her own tumultuous journey. She cast her gaze toward the scattered papers on her desk, filled with her plans for the new curriculum. Each proposal to intertwine ancient narratives with present realities felt like a rebellious act of defiance against Nathan's looming expectations. The fear of facing him, the embodiment of her insecurities, tightened around her throat. But this encounter could also be her opportunity to articulate her path forward, to transform her doubts into declarations. The following morning stretched before her, a canvas waiting for the brushstrokes of her actions. A flurry of emotions cascaded through her. The thrill of rebellion battled with the stifling warmth of trepidation. Did she really have the fortitude to stand her ground and advocate for a radical shift in her teaching philosophy? She recognized the potential consequences of failure, a world of disapproving glances, whispering doubts, and maybe even failure crystallizing her worst fears. But too much was at stake, not just for her, but for the students yearning for significance in their education. When she arrived at school, the hallways buzzed with the chaotic energy of students and faculty alike. That morning, Sarah chose the route of inevitability and headed to Nathan's office. Each deliberate step seemed to echo louder than the last, shaking loose bits of uncertainty that clung to her. Could today's discussion lead to the affirmation she so desperately needed, or would it transform into another trial of her convictions? The door stood ajar, and she knocked softly, waiting for an invitation before stepping inside. Nathan's office was tidy, yet the chilling air revealed an underlying disarray of his authority. He sat in a leather chair that rendered him a titan among ants. She felt small, like someone peering up at a distant peak, wondering if she could ever climb it. "Sarah, thank you for coming," he began, his eyes scrutinizing her as if searching for weakness. "I thought we should discuss that charm of yours. It seems to have become quite a talking point at the last faculty meeting." His tone dripped with condescension, gnawing at the edges of her resolve. "Talking point like good or bad?" she challenged, surprising herself with the defiance in her voice. The thirst for self-advocacy overflowed, if only for a fleeting moment. Nathan leaned back, the corners of his mouth twitching in amusement. "You know how it is, Sarah. We're all concerned about standards, Sarah. A charm isn't going to advance your students' academic skills." His dismissive words draped over her like an unexpected shroud. In that moment, a flicker of rage ignited within her. It was both a liberating and terrifying realization. Instead of folding, she could choose to fight for her vision, her approach, to show him that a more profound understanding awaited those who dared to see value outside rigid confines. "Perhaps we are at an impasse then," she said, as each word slid past her lips with a newfound clarity. It was both a realization and a personal manifesto. But the charm can inspire more than you think. It holds stories and legacy that transcend time. As she spoke, she noticed his smirk faltering, replaced by a calculating gaze. The conversation shifted. She felt the power slowly ebbing toward her. Did he grasp the opportunities that lay ahead if he chose to support her? With renewed vigor, she detailed her vision. Words flowed, connecting the charm to historical ties, illustrating its metaphorical place within the curriculum she was building. Each point she made punched through the air, wavering between past and future, all while her heart rate climbed. Yet an imperceptible thread of unease rattled her confidence. What if he remained obstinate? What if the risks she anticipated came to fruition, rendering her fight futile? As their discussion continued, each moment stretched out like the horizon in front of her, vast and unknown. The stakes were increasingly high, and everything, her ideas, her identity, hung delicately in the balance. As the clock ticked ominously toward the end of their meeting, Nathan's response remained cloaked behind inscrutable expression. Would he support her? Would she ever reclaim her identity as a storyteller, mother, and educator? The time had come to face not only Nathan, but her fear too, the aspects of herself imprisoned by his authority. But as the conversation drew closer to conclusion, one thought buried deep in the crevices of her mind emerged. How would she wield her newfound strength? With the echoes of her proposal still reverberating in the air, Sarah wondered if she possessed the strength needed to pave her path, one unconstrained by the shadows of others. As the conversation drew to a close, Nathan's expression hardened. The silence between them felt like an elastic band stretched to its limits, ready to snap with the slightest provocation. Sarah's heart raced, each pulse resonating with the urgency of her ambitions crisscrossing with Nathan's authoritative gaze. "I appreciate your enthusiasm, Sarah," he finally said, though the dismissiveness clung to his words like mist. "But educational integrity requires a focus on measurable outcomes. These stories you speak of, what do they actually teach?" His inquiry was sharp, a scalpel probing for weakness. "More than mere scores," she replied, the waver in her voice betraying the storm of doubt brewing within her. "They teach context, empathy, historical significance. They help students connect with their own identities." With each word, her voice regained strength, infused with passion that reverberated against the sterile walls. "Context?" He narrowed his eyes. "You mean to say we should prioritize anecdotes over proven scientific methodology?" The skeptical tilt of his head reinforced that she stood on the precipice of her most daunting challenge yet. In a rush of defiance, she leaned forward, embracing the palpable tension in the air. If students can't see themselves in history, how can they be inspired to learn? Rigid standards limit creativity, and creativity is where true learning flourishes. As the words left her lips, she felt liberated, as if shaking off the shackles of her previous insecurity. This was her chance, not just to advocate for a pedagogical shift, but to redefine her relationship with uncertainty itself. The fleeting thoughts of failure that once paralyzed her began to morph into the thrilling prospect of triumph. Yet, Nathan's insistent demeanor felt like a storm cloud threatening to unleash rain. "Those are noble sentiments, but do you have data to support this theory?" In that instant, Sarah was reminded of the many late nights spent gathering research, filling her mind with statistics and studies about the transformative power of storytelling in education. She realized then that every bit of knowledge she had absorbed, gleaned from dusty journals and erudite tomes, was a weapon she could deploy. "Yes, I do," she stated, her heart steadier but still racing. "And I can present it in our next faculty meeting. I want to show everyone that integrating stories can create a robust learning environment that nurtures both creativity and critical thinking." The challenge hung in the air, a double-edged sword. On one hand, she felt a surge of hope. The possibility of her ideas gaining traction lit a spark in her flesh. But deeper within her swirled a dread. What if the attempt to publicly support her vision faltered? What if she exposed herself to scorn in front of her peers? Nathan's appraisal of her shifted, revealing a glimmer of unwelcome respect. "You have spirit, Sarah, but this isn't a battle you can fight alone. Be prepared. Change is met with resistance, especially from those who hold power." "Then I am ready," she asserted, a steely resolve solidifying within her. "If transformation is what it takes, I will embrace the discomfort that comes with it. For them, for my students, this is a fight worth fighting." As she stepped away from Nathan's office, the familiar corridors echoed with the pulse of her determination. Every face she passed felt like a reminder of the stakes she had picked, the identities she was set to challenge. The vast expanse of her ambitions loomed ahead like an unexplored jungle. But would her courage hold when put to the test, or would the tides of doubt sweep her off course? She made a mental note to leverage every resource available: peer support, research backing, whatever it took. The preparation for their upcoming meeting began knotting her stomach with a twisted blend of excitement and fear. In the quiet recess of her mind, a nagging voice questioned the solidity of her convictions. Was she equipped for the inevitable backlash? Sarah paused, allowing the gravity of her chosen path to settle. In seeking to break free from Nathan's shadow, she had not merely chosen to present ideas, she had chosen to transform herself. As she sat down with a notepad, her fingers danced across the pages, tentatively plotting her strategy. The act felt like a ritual, a marking of her personal metamorphosis. Yet, deep within, a flicker of uncertainty lingered. Could she truly stand her ground when the fight escalated? The reflections formed a swirling tempest, begging the question, what if this journey toward empowerment unveiled shadows she hadn't anticipated? With the horizon tantalizingly ahead, the stakes had never been higher, and Sarah was more determined than ever to face whatever lay in wait. But as she turned the page, the weight of doubt coalesced into a single sentence, jagged and sharp. What hidden truths would she discover about her own resilience? The day of the faculty meeting arrived, casting a tense shadow over Sarah's preparations. The dimly lit conference room felt smaller than usual, its walls closing in as she replayed her notes in her mind. Each statistic, each narrative thread she'd woven together felt vital, yet the pressure of impending scrutiny loomed larger. She practiced her delivery silently, wanting to appear composed while the chaos swirled inside her. A sea of familiar faces greeted her as she walked into the room. Nathan sat at the head of the table, his posture exuding an unyielding authority. The others settled in, their expressions a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. Each glance seemed to challenge her resolve. She was acutely aware of the weight of their expectations and potential judgments. As she began her presentation, the familiar adrenaline surged through her veins, battling the cold grip of doubt. She outlined her argument for integrating storytelling into the curriculum. The statistics rolled off her tongue with practiced ease, backed by the research that had consumed her nights. As she transitioned into the narratives of students whose lives had been transformed by these techniques, she felt the narrative take on a life of its own. Yet with every passing second, a voice in the back of her mind questioned her authority. Would they receive this well? Was there truly a place for her ideas in a system adorned with tradition and known quantities? The fear of Nathan's earlier dismissiveness hovered, a specter she couldn't shake. "Interesting concept, Sarah," one of her colleagues interrupted with a smirk. "But isn't it a bit idealistic? Shouldn't we stick to what we know works?" The tension in the room thickened as murmurs cascaded around the table. Her heart pounded. This was the moment she dreaded, the direct confrontation that Nathan had warned her about. "Sticking to what we know has limited us," she shot back, anger igniting her confidence. "If we only rely on what is measurable now, we risk producing students who can recall data but not relate to it. Education should produce thinkers, not just test takers." As she held the collective gaze of her colleagues, something shifted within her. She realized she was no longer merely presenting ideas. She was fighting for a vision that had taken root deep within her psyche. Each roar of doubt became a challenge she was now willing to confront. There was power in her vulnerability. But just as her determination seemed to solidify, Nathan interjected with a disarming calmness. "Your points are valid, Sarah, but this is a system built on results. What happens when we abandon concrete evidence for stories? Are we really doing our students a favor?" His words struck hard, but instead of shrinking, Sarah stood her ground, emboldened by the fire inside her. "What if stories are the keys to unlocking their futures, Nathan? If they can see themselves within those stories, can't we produce better thinkers who challenge the status quo?" The silence that followed offered a moment of reflection, the gravity of her words settling like dust after a storm. A colleague nodded slowly, and others exchanged glances, uncertainties visibly dissipating. As Sarah wrapped up her presentation, she felt an unexpected surge of hope. Perhaps her struggle wasn't in vain after all. But as she observed Nathan's contemplative expression, she knew the battle was far from over. His influence loomed, a lingering question mark that could sway the tide against her. Amidst the applause that followed her speech, a new realization dawned. The real challenge lay not in convincing others, but in maintaining her belief when faced with adversity. She felt a stirring within her, a growing hunger for knowledge and understanding, for allies in this fight. As she packed her notes, the weight of her journey pressed down, accompanied by exhilarating dread. What if Nathan prepared counterarguments that she hadn't anticipated? What if her colleagues, swayed by his authority, turned against her aspirations? The exuberance of the applause still echoed in her ears. Yet a disconcerting thought invaded her mind, demanding attention. What had she still to learn about resilience in the face of institutional power? As she contemplated her next move, she was poised on the edge of another transformative moment, teetering between hope and apprehension. With a new resolve sharpening her vision, she stepped into the hallway, determined to seek out allies among her colleagues. Little did she know that amidst the familiar faces, a potential mentor lurked in the shadows, one who held secrets that might just propel her further on her journey. Would she have the courage to uncover them? Sarah stepped out of the conference room, heart still racing from the adrenaline of her presentation. The stale air of the hallway contrasted sharply with the charged atmosphere she had just left behind. Every step felt weighted, but her mind buzzed with potential. She couldn't allow the flicker of doubt to take hold again. As she wandered through the halls lined with photographs of past faculty members and student achievements, Sarah's gaze fell upon a bulletin board cluttered with notices. Somewhere amidst the yellowed papers, a flyer caught her attention. Mentoring opportunities. Pair with experienced educators. A spark ignited within her. Here lay a path she hadn't considered, a chance not only to seek guidance, but to foster the very collaboration she'd advocated for in her presentation. Her fingers trembled slightly as she ripped off a flyer and held it tightly in her hand. She had been so focused on the end goal of her presentation that she'd overlooked the surrounding resources. She needed allies, and to build allies, she had to start opening herself up to others. In the following days, Sarah took every opportunity to reach out to her colleagues, engaging with them during lunch hours and chatting in the faculty lounge. Some were welcoming, eager to discuss their perspectives on education, while others still regarded her with skepticism. Whenever Nathan's name arose, the tension returned. His influence hung over the faculty like a dark cloud, casting doubts on her every initiative. One afternoon, after encountering a few dismissive comments, Sarah retreated to her classroom, frustration boiling inside her. She caught a glimpse of herself in the reflection of a classroom window. The image of a defeated educator staring back at her shocked her. Hadn't she just fought valiantly for her vision? Why allow others' perceptions to derail her? Clenching her fists, Sarah decided it was time to confront this internal battle directly. She pulled out her notebook and began jotting down the qualities she admired in great educators: resilience, creativity, passion. Each adjective acted as a reminder, anchoring her thoughts and intentions. The next faculty meeting approached with a sense of foreboding, but she resolved to keep her head high. She would be a voice among the noise, not a mere echo of Nathan's authority. The challenge was set. Rather than just presenting ideas, she would strategically address the concerns of her colleagues directly while reinforcing her standpoint through evidence. Arriving early, she noticed a colleague, Miss Martinez, quietly studying the meeting agenda. Sarah approached, her heart racing with the thrill of opportunity. "Hey, Miss Martinez, I've been thinking about our last meeting. I'd love to hear your thoughts on storytelling in education. I know we might not see eye to eye, but I believe there's value in discussing it further." To her surprise, it opened a dialogue. Miss Martinez expressed her apprehensions, and Sarah listened intently.
Their discussion flowed easily, revealing common ground that had previously seemed impossible. When others began to filter in, Sarah felt a surge of confidence. She had allies now, partners in this struggle. After the meeting, an unexpected voice spoke up. "Sarah," it was Chris, usually quiet but with a thoughtful expression. "I appreciate your passion. What you said about storytelling resonated with me. I always thought it was about data. Maybe we haven't been looking at it the right way." The warmth spread through Sarah. Yes, engagement was growing, reaffirming her belief in the power of narratives.
Ideas were sparking into possibility. But as the meeting concluded, Nathan's eyes found hers across the table, lingering too long. That familiar pressure returned. He was watching, waiting for her next moves. The unease gripped her again, but beneath it rose a stronger determination. She would not be easy to dismiss. As Sarah walked to her car that day, her thoughts raced. What strategies could she employ next? How could she reinforce her allies in the face of Nathan's authority? Each question propelled her forward, deeper into uncharted territory. With each day that passed, the urgency to solidify her ideas grew sharper, but so did the risk of falling into complacency and retreating. Yet the moment she paused to doubt herself, she recalled Miss Martinez and Chris, filled with the energy of collaboration and change. But in the midst of strategizing, a slight change in Nathan's demeanor creeped up on her. The way he casually mentioned a workshop aimed at realigning educational methodologies with a gleam in his eye. What if it was an effort to upend everything she had fought for? The stakes were rising, and Sarah knew she had to act quickly, before traditions took an irrevocable hold of her vision. What would she uncover in the upcoming days that would either propel her forward or challenge her resolve once more? The faculty lounge had a different energy as Sarah entered the next morning. Conversations seemed more animated, punctuated by laughter and the clinking of coffee mugs. She felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps some of her colleagues were beginning to embrace her vision. Instead of retreating to her classroom, she dove into the hustle, engaging whomever she could. Miss Martinez approached her first, a surprised smile illuminating her face. "I've been thinking about your storytelling idea," she began, her voice tinged with newfound enthusiasm. "What if we develop it into a workshop, something collaborative?" The suggestion hit Sarah like a gust of wind. A workshop? If they could design it together, with participation from more faculty, they would have a palpable foothold against Nathan's impending workshop. "That's brilliant," Sarah replied, her mind racing. "We could even include a segment on how storytelling has been shown to improve engagement in classrooms." As they discussed ideas, Sarah felt the tension in her chest begin to lessen. Each moment of connection with Miss Martinez felt like a step away from the isolation Nathan's influence had cast around her. They sketched out an outline, growing more excited as the potential unfolded. But beneath that thrill was a nagging worry. Would Nathan try to sabotage their efforts? Back at her desk, Sarah stared at her notes from the meeting. Listening to her colleagues had revealed different facets of their practices, their motivations. She had also discerned that some of their apprehensions stemmed from a fear of change, a fear she understood all too well. These realizations stoked a deeper fire in her. If she wanted to lead this change, she would have to confront that fear head-on, for both herself and her colleagues. Her resolve transported her into action mode. She drafted a proposal for the workshop, eager to frame it as a way to elevate rather than threaten existing practices. The more she devoted herself to outlining the benefits of storytelling and collaboration, the more fortified her confidence became. But anxiety returned when she walked past Nathan in the hallway, his demeanor more relaxed than usual. "Sarah," he called, halting her momentum, "I trust you're preparing for the workshop next week. I hope you'll remember that our methodologies must stay rigorous." His feigned cordiality masked a challenge. "Actually, Nathan," she said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her gut, I believe the workshop will explore innovative approaches that enhance engagement rather than compromise our standards." He smiled, but the glint in his eyes felt predatory. "I look forward to hearing more about that then. Remember, we all are here for the students." Here it was again, the complicated dynamic between their professional styles, a subtle hierarchy that left her unsettled. As she sat in her classroom, a renewed sense of purpose washed over her. She had cultivated some supportive relationships, and it was clear those allies could help her. But how to integrate them without falling back into complacency? Sarah recognized that this work was more than just a workshop. It was about redefining the environment they taught in, reshaping the culture slowly but surely. Over the next few days, she leaned into her networking, pulling in Chris and even a few others who had previously seemed indifferent. Conversations began to evolve. Sarah synthesized diverse opinions, recognizing that every voice added complexity and richness to the project. Each discussion revealed insight she hadn't anticipated, igniting further possibilities. But as the workshop drew nearer, Nathan's body language increasingly betrayed his discontent. His casual remarks became snide comments that dripped with sarcasm. On one occasion, as Sarah set up a meeting with the faculty to finalize plans, he subtly suggested they reconsider their approach, dropping hints about traditional methods. It felt like a strategic positioning, a calculated bid to reclaim authority, a dance of power she now fully comprehended. The finality of the workshop loomed ahead, and Sarah knew she could not retreat into doubt now. She could no longer allow Nathan's influence to overshadow her efforts. This was her moment to impact the very fabric of their educational practices. She vowed to confer with her allies one last time before the presentation, to ensure they felt equipped to bolster their common vision.
As the clock ticked down to the event, Sarah pondered a poignant question. If she was to succeed, what would she be willing to sacrifice to see her vision through? The balance of her integrity against Nathan's dogmatic control felt precarious, but there was no turning back now. The room buzzed with anticipation as the day approached. Would the passion she had ignited within her colleagues be enough to challenge Nathan? The stakes had never been higher. In the silence of her thoughts, she glanced at the proposal again, a flicker of uncertainty giving way to fierce determination. What secrets would be revealed in the confrontation to come? Would allies rise to stand alongside her against Nathan's dominance, or would tradition prevail? The morning of the workshop arrived, casting a palpable tension over the school. Sarah could feel the energy shift as she stepped into the bright, airy room where they'd gathered. It was a stark contrast to the shadows Nathan had cast over her confidence, but her determination erupted fiercely within her. She had prepared meticulously, intertwining stories and statistics about the efficacy of storytelling in education. Today was about forging connections between ideas and people. She greeted her colleagues as they trickled in, noting the blend of excitement and apprehension on their faces. Each smile was a reminder of how far they'd come since that initial meeting with Ms. Martinez. But beneath their enthusiasm lay the anxiety of facing Nathan's established authority. Would they falter in the face of his skepticism? As the clock inched closer to start time, Sarah's mind buzzed with possibilities. She arranged her materials, conducive to fostering discussion rather than dictating information. She wanted them to feel ownership of the workshop. This was not merely an agenda, it was a shared journey to rethink a significant aspect of their teaching. The moment the workshop commenced, Sarah welcomed everyone, her voice steady, boiling with an enthusiasm she sought to infect them with. She encouraged everyone to explore the power of narratives, sparking conversations about how effectively they could engage their students. Groups formed as participants brainstormed their visions for how they might weave storytelling into their curricula. However, the tension shifted abruptly when Nathan entered the room, his presence demanding. With a confident stride, he scanned the circle of enthusiastic teachers. "I see we're all embracing some rather unconventional ideas today," he remarked, a smirk crossing his face. Sarah inhaled deeply, feeling her heart race. "Absolutely, Nathan. We're looking to explore innovative methods that resonate with students." The air crackled as she spoke, but Nathan leaned on his reputation, subtle but pungent. "Just remember, the key tenets of our standards should not be overshadowed by creativity."
"Our students need structure and rigor above all else," he countered, his eyes flickering sharply across the room. She noticed subtle shifts among her colleagues. Were they retreating to traditional norms, or were they empowered to push against them? Taking a breath, Sarah knew she needed to reclaim the focus. "Nathan, that's why we're exploring stories as a framework. Storytelling doesn't undermine our methods. It can enhance learning by making material relatable." The words hung like a challenge, and the room quieted as they absorbed her assertion. In that moment, Sarah realized the true strength of her argument rested not solely in the idea of storytelling, but in the shared experiences of those in the room. Each person had faced their own struggles in the classroom, and this workshop was their collective opportunity to redefine success. As the workshop progressed, Sarah's confidence surged. She shared anecdotes from her teaching experiences, emphasizing how storytelling had transformed her own interactions with students. With every story, her colleagues became more engaged, responsive, and a bond formed, not just as professionals, but as allies in this moment of evolution. But just as she felt the tide turning, Nathan interjected again with pointed critiques, trying to belittle their brainstorming. His tone dripped with condescension, attempting to draw the atmosphere back into fear and doubt. "While I admire enthusiasm," he sneered, "one must question if such whimsical approaches truly meet our educational obligations." It struck her then, this wasn't just about competing methodologies, it was personal. The clash between their teaching philosophies was a culmination of years of underlying tension. Sarah resolved that Nathan's commentary would not derail their progress. Instead, she invited the faculty to channel the energy of their shared vision. "Let's break into groups," she called, sensing a swell of support. "Discuss how we can apply these ideas within our different disciplines while keeping to our standards." As the room began to buzz with ideas and dialogue, she saw her colleagues come alive, their energy pushing past Nathan's skepticism. They no longer felt like subordinates, but vibrant contributors to something larger. But as the workshop reached its crescendo, an unexpected thought unsettled Sarah. Was Nathan truly powerless to disrupt what they were building, or was he merely biding his time? And in the back of her mind whispered the lingering question: would this workshop be the catalyst for change, or a momentary victory that could disappear in the face of persistent opposition? As laughter and creativity filled the air, the reality of Nathan's lingering shadow loomed large over her thoughts. Was she ready to confront him if this moment sparked a fiercer reaction than she'd anticipated? The confrontation was drawing near, and Sarah felt the weight of the moment as her next decisions approached.
Would she finally confront Nathan, or would fear of retribution hold her back? As the workshop progressed, Sarah felt a growing synergy suffusing the room. Conversations flared with excitement as teachers leaned in, sharing vivid narratives that fascinated their peers. The initial tension brought on by Nathan's critical remarks dissipated slightly, but his shadow still loomed, an unwelcome specter encouraging doubt. "All right, everyone," Sarah said, raising her hands to quiet the room. "Let's bring our ideas back together. I want each group to share one powerful anecdote showcasing how you envision storytelling in your classrooms." She stood in the circle, feeling the shift in dynamics. The initial uncertainty of her colleagues was giving way to a palpable tension of inspiration. Hands began to shoot up, and Sarah felt her heart swell at the willingness to share, to challenge the conventions Nathan clung to. "Jessica, why don't you start us off?" she invited. Jessica, a younger teacher whose enthusiasm was evident from the beginning, smiled nervously but launched into a story about how she transformed a dull history lesson into an engaging narrative. As she spoke, a light ignited in the eyes of other teachers. They were recalling their own experiences, the magical moments when students truly resonated with the material and the joy it had brought them. But just as the energy surged, Nathan's voice sliced through the air again, sharp and critical. "It's all well and good to talk about story, but can you quantify the impact? Can storytelling improve test scores?" The question, both predictable and jarring, drew the breath from the room. Sarah felt a knot forming in her stomach. Nathan's challenge was not merely an attack, it was a reminder of the immense pressure they were all under, the constant need to justify every teaching method against harsh metrics set by the administration. "Quantification is important, Nathan," Sarah replied, channeling her nerves into determination. "But let's consider the holistic development of our students. When they engage with the material, test scores can improve as a natural byproduct of deeper understanding. Our goal here isn't simply to meet standards, but to ignite passion and curiosity in our students." Nathan's expression didn't change, but she noted the flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. Perhaps he hadn't expected such a robust counter from her. Feeling emboldened, Sarah pressed on. "Educators must adapt to the needs of today's students. They deserve to connect with their learning on a personal level. Isn't that the true measure of success?" The room remained silent, caught in the web of Sarah's conviction. One teacher, Jake, nodded and voiced, "I've seen it in my own class. The more personal a lesson feels for students, the more they care and invest in it." Encouragement swelled, voices rising as others joined in to share their stories of engagement. They began to build an unshakable momentum, pushing back against the limitations imposed by strict conventionality. Sarah's heart raced with excitement. This was no longer just about storytelling. It represented a sea change within their practices. But just as she felt victory was within reach, a hard realization settled in. Despite their newfound unity, Nathan was still there, deeply mired in the fabric of the school's authority. Could they actually change minds that had been set for far longer than they'd all been teaching? Her plan was clear. She needed to confront Nathan directly and make him see the benefits not only for students but for educators too. But the fear of potential backlash and loss of support always lingered at the edges of her confidence. With her thoughts spiraling into a fog of doubt, she caught sight of the clock ticking down. Time was slipping away, and she knew she had to act fast, lest their bubble of inspiration burst under Nathan's scrutiny. The final moments of the workshop loomed before her like an inescapable decision point. Should she challenge him, risking everything, or maintain the fragile coalition that had blossomed in the space between their ideas? The decision hovered in her mind as she opened her mouth to speak, poised to make a powerful declaration about the future of their teaching practices. But would her words carry the weight of conviction she felt inside? "Let's finish strong," she called, rallying the room one last time. "What do we want to take into our classrooms tomorrow?" As the chorus of answers began to swell anew, Sarah's resolve solidified. Tomorrow she would act. She could no longer afford to be a passive participant in her own professional fate. But the question clung to her like a shadow. What price would she pay to reclaim her voice? As the workshop reached its climax, Sarah stood before her assembled colleagues, their faces a tapestry of hope and uncertainty. She could feel Nathan's watchful gaze, a relentless reminder of the authority he wielded. But an inner strength coiled within her, a belief in the vision she had passionately crafted. Today wasn't just about promotion, it was about transformation. "Let's finish strong," she rallied, her voice slicing through the lingering tension. "What do we want to take into our classrooms tomorrow?" The responses streamed forth, vibrant and impassioned. Creativity, connection, empathy, powerful ideals resonating through the room. Each voice added another layer to their collective resolve, a tapestry interwoven with dreams and potential. Sarah felt a surge of excitement as she recognized that in this moment they were no longer isolated voices battling the torrents of standardization. They were aligned, united by a singular cause. But Nathan, unpredictable as always, interjected with a calculating smile. "Let's remember that intentions are only as good as their outcomes."
If we don't see measurable results in our students, where does that leave us? An unsettling tension followed Nathan's challenge, each hesitation revealing the tenuous nature of their newfound unity. Sarah's heart raced, sensing that this would define her moment of truth. Would she allow his assertions to anchor their ideals, or would she rise to confront the very foundation of their discussions? "Measurable outcomes are essential, Nathan," Sarah replied, her voice steady despite the tempest in her chest. But creativity isn't antithetical to effectiveness. When students connect emotionally with their learning, outcomes improve not just in numbers, but in their very understanding of themselves and the world. We need to foster thinkers, innovators, and storytellers. The room held its collective breath, and for the first time she could see something shift in Nathan's demeanor, a flicker of uncertainty, perhaps. Sarah seized the moment, her own courage crystallizing. What if we present not just results, but the impact we can see in those results? The passion ignited through storytelling inevitably leads to deeper comprehension. This is about nurturing lifelong learners, not just test takers. Her heart soared as, with each sentence, she watched her colleagues lean further into their shared vision. It was no longer just her fight, it was theirs as well. And in this alliance, she recognized the fulfillment she had sought not only for herself, but for her students as well. As the discussions erupted again with fervor, Sarah's gaze caught Nathan's fixed stare. This was undoubtedly the pivotal clash, one steeped in both personal stakes and broader ramifications. She felt the weight of the moment, how its trajectory hinged entirely on the dialogue unfolding before her. After the workshop concluded, with applause echoing in the room, Sarah felt a genuine shift within herself. For the first time, she realized what she had truly accomplished. She had been transformed from a passive educator into an active advocate for change. She had reclaimed her identity, guided by the very passions that had initially sparked her devotion to teaching. As colleagues gathered around her, sharing excitement and plans for their classrooms, a sense of belonging settled deep in her. Allyship had taken root, a network of educators prepared to battle along her side against the entrenched authority Nathan represented. They had become a force against the rigidity that had long defined their teaching experiences. But even amidst the triumph, Sarah felt the gnawing question: what would Nathan do next? Would he see this unity among the teachers as a threat? The reality loomed, and tension lingered, even in victory. She also wondered about Mia. Her daughter had remained a poignant element in her journey, and now, with newfound momentum, it was crucial to reinforce their bond. Later that evening, sitting across from Mia at the kitchen table, Sarah shared her day. Each time she recounted details of the workshop, the discussions, the compelling responses, she drew her daughter in, igniting a spark of curiosity mirroring the energy from her colleagues. "Mama, are you telling me that you made them understand how important stories can be?" Mia asked, her eyes wide with admiration. "Yes, sweetheart," Sarah replied, her heart swelling with pride. "And you know what? I think I'll be able to connect with you more through stories. I want us to grow together, understand each other better, just like I want for my students." In that moment, Sarah felt the warmth of fulfillment envelop her. A deeper understanding blossomed not only in her professional life, but personally as well.
She had grown confident enough to wield her passion in both realms, intertwining her teaching and her role as a mother. With each conversation flowing freely that evening, she realized she'd not just achieved a professional victory, she had conquered the complexity of her dualities, evolving into an unyielding force of transformation in both her classroom and home. Perhaps most importantly, Sarah understood that her journey was just beginning. In embracing her past and melding it with her present, she had illuminated a path forward, confident in her dedication to nurturing not only herself, but others around her. The tension with Nathan would not disappear overnight, but she was resolute in facing the looming challenges head-on, as a pioneering storyteller and a passionate advocate for change. As she tucked Mia in that night, Sarah whispered a promise to continue, to advocate, inspire, and impart powerful narratives that shaped identities and broadened horizons. She had unlocked the door to a transformative chapter in her life, and simultaneously found her place in history, both personal and professional. And with that, Sarah felt invigorated, ready to face whatever awaited in the ever-unfolding pages of her story. She had stepped away from the shadows of doubt and emerged into the vibrant light of possibility, showcasing the power of narratives that pulsated not only within her, but within all those she dared to inspire. Now, take a leap and join us. You need to subscribe now to our channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that inspire personal growth. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm so people can discover these transformative tales. Comment your reactions and theories about Sarah's remarkable journey, and share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this powerful conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to support our movement toward personal overcoming stories.